I do want to talk about what's happening in Seattle as an example. And by the way, it's not unusual. So I was just in California. And you'd love this, given the name of your podcast, but we teamed up with the Common Sense Party of California that's trying to create an alternative there to the Democratic Party. If you're here in Washington State, it's a blue state. Certainly Seattle's a one-party city. And so the Democrats can screw things up in Seattle, and there is no chance that they're going to lose power to the other party.
Correct.
And so what they do is they play within their own circles. What is the first thing you hear or see in the press when there's an open position? Who's next in line?
Yeah.
There's like this churn and this hierarchy, and things can fall apart. You can have homelessness and substance abuse problems or public safety problems. The Democratic Party does not have any meaningful competition. So here in Washington, what we're saying is, look, join the Forward Party of Washington, and then your downside is that we actually create some competitive pressure on the Democrats to get things done and deliver. That's a win. Your upside is we actually get leaders into office who owe nothing except to the people who help get them elected. And that's an enormous win. But running a Republican in a place like Seattle is a total waste of time.
We have a Republican city attorney. She was a Republican for like 10 minutes when she got elected, but we do have one. It was a very historic occasion.
Yeah, and the game that's being played against all of us, and it's one reason why I value your work so much, Brandi, is that we're being played. We're being coded and conditioned where it's like, hey, you have an R next to your name. Oh, you're a terrible human in these ways. Like, oh, you're a D next to your name. Then that means you're, an idiot in these ways. And so if someone runs in Washington for city council, mayor, school board, whatever, and it's Forward Party, no one knows what the hell that means, And so, what they'll have to do? They'll have to be like, maybe I have to listen to this person. Maybe I have to go to their website. Maybe I have to see what they're about. And if they did those things, they would be like, this person's actually pretty reasonable. So that is what we're doing here in Washington and in California and around the country.
But at the same time, you listed, what you said about what's happening in Washington State and Seattle is spot on. One of my chief complaints is we've had a Democratic governor for 30 years. We've had a trifecta in Olympia. Democrats have controlled the House, Senate, and the governor's office for 7 legislative sessions. This state is much worse off than when I moved here 13 years ago. The homeless crisis, the crime crisis, but they keep getting elected. And now Republicans are just a non-factor.
That is the point, Brandi,
right.
Is that 75% of the country is in the same exact boat.
Yeah.
Where you have a party in control. By the way, the two parties just carved the country up into blue zones and red zones. And if I'm in a blue zone, I have nothing to worry about in terms of Republicans. The only thing I have to worry about is catering to like our cabal. It's the same drill in like a Missouri or Mississippi on the Republican side. So what can we do to create genuine competition and improve the conditions? Because what you just said about things getting worse in Seattle, for example, where things are rancid is San Francisco, where I just was. You have open air drug use and like the National Guard getting called out and frankly, like human disintegration, like all around you. So, but, is there going to be like a change of power in San Francisco? No. So that is the game, and that is what we have to change. That's why, again, your audience is so important, because we can change it in Seattle, we can change it in Washington, we can change it around the country by the numbers. I'm a math guy. 50% of the country plus says they're independent, and a majority want this.
But, the point I was making is we have all these crises right now, and people are dying at record levels on our streets of overdoses. The Forward Party is nowhere near being in a position to make a difference. Are you? So what I'm asking is, when do you think you'd be in a position to truly disrupt what we're seeing in some areas like Seattle and San Francisco?
This is exactly why I'm here, Brandi. And so if you ask yourself this, okay, there are 3 ways you can try and make it change in Seattle. Number 1, you can convert the Democratic Party into something else. I'm going to suggest that's not happening. Number 2, you can convince folks in Seattle to vote for a sane Republican. That's not happening because the party's lost its mind and like the R is coded negatively. Number 3, you have an independent effort, let's call it the Forward Party, and you run folks who actually represent what most people want. Which of those 3 plans makes the most sense to you?
Yeah. Well, and look, I give you all the credit in the world. I sit on this show and I complain about the two parties. You're actually out there trying to fix it. So I don't want to make it sound like I don't think it's effective.
And I don't underestimate the egregious difficulty of what we're doing.
Right.
I just do not see another path.
What about just
what I mean?
encouraging people to run as independents?
I would love that. And one of the things that's happening too, Brandi, is that when we show up on the scene, the folks who become our leaders and state leads and executive chairs and the rest of it are the card-carrying independents in that community. And the question you have to ask again is like, when you have an independent candidate, you know what they do every single time? They have to reinvent the fucking wheel. Like if there was another independent candidate, like in another part of the state or even another part of the country who ran and probably lost, you get none of that. There are none of the professional class, the staff, the consultants, the pollsters, because the two parties have essentially quasi-monopolies on each of those groups. So which is a better plan for independents? Is like, would you rather team up with independents from around the country? Like Andrew Yang, if you think about me, like what am I now? I'm an independent. Like I will show up and I will try and help you win. Is it better to have that in a national tribe that, by the way, is growing all the time and the rest of it? Or is it better just to have everyone take a shot and start at ground zero every time?
Yeah, that infrastructure is important. And, when it's been brought up to me, like, oh, will you run for something? And my answer is always, it's almost impossible to win as an independent, and the infrastructure just isn't there, and the fundraising isn't there. So you're saying that if you had an independent candidate who wanted to run and they were willing to identify as being a member of the Forward Party, you would come in and provide them with infrastructure they needed?
Yes, and that is the whole point of the Forward Party. And again, do not underestimate the difficulty. So we started a national party, which really what it means is you're starting 50 state parties and then one national umbrella. So we're now recognized on the ballot in 6 states. We're heading towards, let's call it 12 to 15 by the end of this year.
Which 6 states right now?
3 off the top of my head are Nevada, Texas, and Florida. The other 3 I'd have to look up. Because we're making progress all the time. It's good fun. But this is the game, really. I mean, and so, Brandi, you are perfect because there's so many people who are like you, where they're looking at this current system and said, well, this isn't working. And then, hey, you know what else? I don't really feel like being told to hate my fellow Americans. Like, that's not really the plan. And the thing we're providing with the Forward Party is like, well, let's go fight it out then. Now, again, not underestimating the difficulty because the parties in control the media for the most part, except for you. Another reason I love you.
Andrew Yang loves me.
I do love Brandi Kruse, and I love the idea of our country not being divided anymore. They have the donor class. They have a lot of the corporate interests, because if you were a company, it's like, well, shoot, like this party controls stuff. I'm going to stay on their good side. So not underestimating the difficulty, but what do we have on our side? We have actually what people want. We have half the country at least waiting to be activated. We have a system that is more and more just like wearing its dysfunction on its sleeve openly and like unable to make a cogent defense as to why it deserves to to continue to like run things. So where does it go from here? And the Forward Party, our goal is to be a long-term infrastructure builder and player. The problem in this space historically has been that there's been a billionaire who shows up, runs for president. If it doesn't work out, they go home. Like they should stick around and be like, all right, let's grind it out. That's what we're doing.